Welcome to Watch the Bookerman and to Impact Wrestling 2012, and this is the show which follows up the events of Lockdown 2012. There's of course only one main talking point coming out of that show. As great as everything else on the card was, Brock Lesnar made his Impact Wrestling debut after weeks of hype from Paul Heyman. So while it wasn't the best pay-per-view we've put on by any means, it was of course a significant night in the history of Impact Wrestling, and just as important as how you debut someone is how you follow that up. So let's go into Impact Wrestling for this week and do just that. And we begin of course with a look back at the events of the pay-per-view, because basically if anybody didn't buy that pay-per-view and hasn't heard the news, we want the first thing they see when they turn on this show to be Brock Lesnar arriving in Impact Wrestling as Paul Heyman's special guest. The commentators recap what went down, and we see stills from the pay-per-view, of which a replay is still available to buy. Originally expected to appear at ringside as Kurt Angle returned to the ring for the first time in 6 months against Samoa Joe, Paul Heyman revealed to Kurt after his victory that plans had changed. This created some confusion until following victory in the main event, Jeff Hardy found himself as the first person introduced to Brock Lesnar personally, as he was taken out by the former UFC World Heavyweight Champion. The Impact Champion is not here tonight as a result of course, what happened in the match against CM Punk, but also that attack from Brock Lesnar after it. The commentators put over that Paul Heyman will be here, however, and he will be bringing Brock Lesnar with him tonight. Brock Lesnar will officially sign his Impact Wrestling contract as we begin the journey to Slammiversary with Sacrifice, the next stop on the road to that huge show. So even going into lockdown, we hadn't confirmed that Brock Lesnar was officially coming in. Paul Heyman saying that there were still talks ongoing and details of the contract to be finalised. However, in this segment we get the confirmation that everything has been agreed, and it's the main event segment of the show. Brock Lesnar will officially sign with Impact Wrestling. Cutting to the parking lot, the trademark black camper van of the New Age arrives, with the victorious originals stepping out. If we've got new viewers on the show, these are the guys that we want them to see first. We follow Jimmy Jacobs, Tyler Black and the Kings of Wrestling as they make their way through the backstage area and straight to the ring. They've arrived and they're coming straight out because they mean business. The commentators putting over their lethal lockdown victory alongside AJ Styles on Sunday at Lockdown. All four men are banged up and beaten up, but nothing was going to stop them from being out here tonight. While Brock Lesnar may be the talk of the sports world since his arrival at Lockdown, the New Age would rather talk about what they did at that pay-per-view inside the lethal lockdown. They shout out AJ Styles for the one-night alliance with the group, but say that with the New Age of Honor dealt with, they're once again looking to the future. That is what they have always been about, pushing the boundaries, moving this business forward. They think that they pushed some boundaries in the Six Sides of Steel on Sunday, but now they have to look what is next for them. Coming out from the back, Samoa Joe, he's not in a good mood. He lost at Lockdown and his match was somewhat overshadowed by the Brock Lesnar controversy, so he says that he doesn't have time for this back-patting nonsense because quite simply he's pissed off. Brock Lesnar might have made the smart decision to keep his distance from Joe on Sunday, but he knows that he's in the building tonight, and Joe wants Lesnar to see firsthand what he's capable of. Now he knows that Chris Hero is pretty banged up from what Brody Lee, Davey Richards and the rest of the guys did to him on Sunday, so it looks like the New Age originals have got a choice of two. Claudio Castagnoli instinctively steps up and he goes face to face with Joe, more than happy to face him tonight in the main event. So coming out of a pay-per-view, we don't have any pre-booked matches, so we've used this segment to set up tonight's main event, and hopefully again it's about having those new eyes on the product and hopefully converting them who may be only interested in seeing what Brock Lesnar's doing. They want to stick around and see what the likes of Chris Hero, Claudio Castagnoli, Joe and Tyler Black are capable of. Everybody seeming to do well there. Unfortunately, Joe's got a gimmick that's getting stale, so something we can look to tweak or change in the future, but happy with that segment overall. We then go into a opening match. Chuck Taylor is defeated by Charlie Haas, who is the new Impact X Division champion. He makes him tap out to the Haas of Pain in 1 minute and 59. Jim Cornette is on commentary throughout the match, and he is putting over the new X Division champion, putting down that there is nobody on the level of Charlie Haas, putting over the size, the strength, the intensity and the determination of our new X Division champion, and we're going to give him a new gimmick. He had no gimmicks needed, which kind of fits into what was a relatively bland persona that he had before this heel turn. Now we are changing it to Wrestling's Greatest, and it gets an awful rating. So this Charlie Haas push that's already not really going as I'd hoped it to. He's not getting the match ratings, and he's not really building the popularity and momentum that I wanted him to. We've chose him as the guy to end El Generico's incredible run as X Division champion, and we're rewarded by getting an awful rating immediately afterwards. Nonetheless, we're still going to try and recover that and hope that this push doesn't completely go by the wayside, because as I said when I broke up Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team, I didn't want it to be a case of Shelton Benjamin getting the push and Haas being the Jannetty of the group, as it's often called. I wanted it to be that we can push both of these men as credible threats, but things just aren't going the way we'd hoped for Charlie Haas. Jim Cornette raises the hand of the X Division champion in the ring, having spent all the match putting him over. He is Wrestling's Greatest, Charlie Haas, but the full package isn't quite living up to that just yet. The commentators introduce unseen footage from Sunday's Lockdown pay-per-view as Jeff Hardy was loaded into an ambulance following the attack he received at the hands of the debuting Brock Lesnar. So you're going to see that this is a constant thread throughout the night. He is on his way to the building to sign his contract in the ring tonight, and having heard from Samoa Joe earlier on, we're told that Kurt Angle was approached for comment as he arrived at the building tonight. Kurt chose first to focus on his successful return to the ring at Lockdown. He doesn't want that to get buried by all the talk of Brock Lesnar, but he does acknowledge that Brock Lesnar arriving is a huge thing. He shared a ring with him before. He knows what that man is capable of. While Lesnar made his intentions pretty clear on Sunday, Kurt Angle does want to know why, after all the talk from Paul Heyman in the last month about him coming as a special guest to watch Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe, he was nowhere to be seen. Kurt will be watching intently tonight as Lesnar signs his Impact Wrestling contract, and there's a lot of question that he needs answering. Kurt Angle suggests maybe he can ask them in person if he's not satisfied with what we hear from Paul and Brock tonight. A good segment from Kurt Angle, again hopefully increasing the intrigue to that later segment. Taking a microphone following their entrance, Roderick Strong, joined by the Young Bucks and all wearing gold medals, says that he knows that there is one huge talking point coming out of the Lockdown pay-per-view, and he is going to address it. It's been 10 straight pay-per-views without Roderick Strong on the card. But you know who was on that show? The guy he beat 3 weeks ago, Desmond Wolfe. Now he knows that these people have short memories, so Roderick Strong dug out his old Team USA gold medal, because while these people boo them now, the three men in the ring once proudly fought for their country. Forget those guys we saw pull up at the start of the night, and those who are about to come out to face them, because Team USA are the greatest trio in the world today. These fans may have forgot them bringing home gold for the United States in the World X Cup just over a year ago, but they're here to remind everybody, especially Desmond Wolfe and the Motor City Machine Guns, what they can do tonight. So it's a decent segment from Team USA, and they go on to defeat the somewhat makeshift trio of Desmond Wolfe and the Motor City Machine Guns. It's a tainted victory, and those medals that they've dug out from somewhere are the decisive factor. Roderick Strong hitting Chris Sabin with the medal wrapped around his hand, and then following up with a sick kick for the 1-2-3. A really good match. Desmond Wolfe, the star performer, but Roderick Strong and the Motor City, everyone doing well in that match, let's be fair, and gaining heat to the World Tag Team Championship storyline, getting the crowd hotter, so I can't complain about this one bit. And it's a good win and a needed win for Roderick Strong, Matt Jackson and Nick Jackson. After the match, they make a quick exit. They've got their medals, they're celebrating over the top, but they don't want to be in the ring when the three men regroup because they cheated to win. Desmond Wolfe checks on Chris Sabin in the ring, as does Alex Shelley. Coming out from the back, a disgruntled Bryan Danielson asked Desmond Wolfe what he is doing. They were opponents on Sunday, and now he's pally-pally with Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. the two begin to bicker again. This is just like Bryan just wants to pick on anything that Wolf does, it seems, and Wolf actually knocks the title on Bryan's shoulder off it, and it drops to the canvas, telling him enough. When Wolf and Danielson go face to face, Alex Shelley tries to come between them, but he's shoved away by Bryan Danielson. This pisses Shelley off, and after helping save him back to his feet, he tells the two, if you want to fight, just get it over with. We've all seen enough of you two bickering, so just fight if you're going to fight. The two then get into a shoving match, with Bryan eventually being knocked to the ground by Wolf. Bryan grabs his title that had previously dropped on the canvas and rolls out the ring, with Wolf joining him on the outside. As Wolf approaches, Bryan looks ready to swing his title at him, but stops as the two make eye contact. It would probably be crossing a line for Bryan to actually physically attack his partner with the championships that they hold. Wolf points at Bryan once again and tells him enough before storming up the ramp. He is at the end of his tether with Bryan Danielson. Now you can understand that these two are never going to be friends, but it does seem that at the minute Danielson is the one who is struggling more with attempting to coexist with Desmond Wolf. We'll then get an interview with Beer Money asking about their victory over the Briscoes on Sunday. It was a hugely emotional match as they put their future as a tag team on the line, and Robert Roode starts by addressing that, saying they were so close on a number of occasions to never teaming again. If Storm ever worries him like that again, then he's taking the beer off him for good. However, as they were victorious at Lockdown, they have one thing on the mind: the Impact World Tag Team Championships. Making a timely beeline across the interview set, Bryan Danielson decides to add his 2 cents, asking if they think that win on Sunday was enough. He's sick of people thinking they're owed a title shot in this place. It's going to take more than going 1-1 with the Briscoes to earn a shot at the Impact World Tag Team Championships. Storm says that if that's what it takes, they'll happily do whatever is needed to get this title shot. But if Bryan and Desmond don't get on the same page, when it does come to them getting that opportunity, then there is no way that Bryan Danielson and Desmond Wolf are leaving with the Impact World Tag Team Championships. So advancing 2 storylines there, and I'm going to say it now just in case I forget, but later in the night we get a confirmation that next week on Impact Wrestling, Beer Money will face the Briscoes, the 3rd and final match, and it will be a tables match to decide the number 1 contenders to the Impact World Tag Team Championships. We then get a video package that looks at the incredible run of Hamada since the beginning of 2012, when she turned her back on her partner and friend Taylor Wilde. She basically left a wake of destruction with anybody associated with that. She took out Aja Kong on that show, then she took out Taylor Wilde, then Sarita, and since then she has beat Mickie James. She has beat a number of women on her path to the Impact Knockouts Championship, a record of 10 victories and 1 defeat, and that was against Gail Kim, who she beat on Sunday to take the title. The package looks to put over the dominant winner of the Knockouts Championship match at Lockdown. Speaking in Japanese with English subtitles, Hamada says that she has beaten every woman that the Knockouts division has to offer before becoming the champion, and proved that nobody can stop her on her path to the gold. She is now waiting for the next knockout who steps up to face her, and she is going to put that woman down next week on Impact Wrestling. So Hamada confirmed to be in non-title action next week. Now this is the only appearance from Hamada on tonight's show, and you could say it's not that good of a use of a new Knockouts champion, but one, there's only so much you can do when she's not going to be cutting long promos in the ring. So doing this package where it's pre-taped and we can translate what she's saying, that's one reason we've done this, but it's also because the main direction of her path to sacrifice becomes clear in a segment that we book in on next week's show after the match that she competes in. We then get the appearance of the 3rd new champion. We've had 3 new champions at Lockdown, all featured in this first hour, as Alyssa Flash and Sarah Del Rey face their old rivals Daisy Hayes and Mischief, defeating them in 6 minutes and 56 when Alyssa Flash submits Daisy Hayes with an inverted cloverleaf. Daisy Hayes the weak link by some distance there, but Sarah Del Rey with a 75, Alyssa Flash with a 69. 2 really, really good performances, and we are putting over the vicious and brutal side. They acted in what you could call is an extremely heelish way at Lockdown, but actually it was more about putting over these 2 women will do anything to become the champions, and they did just that. While they stand tall after the match, we are told on commentary that we will hear from Rosita later tonight. After the match at Lockdown, she was pushed over by Awesome Kong, who was in a fit of rage, having been handcuffed to the 6 sides of steel. We'll see what Rosita has to say about that at some point in the next hour of the show. But we return to the second hour as AJ Styles makes his way to the ring, and he talks about teaming with the New Age Originals at Lockdown. He never thought he'd ever hear himself say that, but AJ feels that while everything happened so quick before the match, he needs to now take the time to explain himself. While he didn't, and still doesn't see eye to eye with his partners from Sunday, he can see that they're making the effort to do things the right way going forward. The same can't be said for the guys they beat. So essentially he's saying he chose the lesser of two evils, and just like the New Age said earlier tonight, he also is looking forward. Brock Lesnar may have come for Jeff Hardy at Lockdown, but AJ Styles is here to ensure that nobody is going to jump the queue for a shot at the Impact World Championship. He doesn't care who you are or where you've come from. As AJ Styles continues to speak, he is jumped seemingly from out of nowhere by the American Wolves, quickly taken down by the two. They lay into him, but quick off the mark, Chris Hero and Tyler Black run down, and the Wolves roll out of the ring before they arrive. So some damage is done to AJ Styles, but it's not a severe attack. Hero and Black, who we thought this association, friendship, whatever you want to call it, was over, they do check on AJ Styles, feeling some sense of responsibility because they brought him back into this rivalry. The commentators mentioned that Claudio Castagnoli isn't here right now because he is set to face Samoa Joe in the main event. AJ Styles with a gimmick that's getting stale. I don't think we've changed his gimmick since the start of the save, and we've not turned him heel at all, so that's kind of understandable. Something to think about, and we'll deal with that going forward. I think it was Samoa Joe as well. I might actually take a note of those two names because they're two pretty significant members of our roster, and we probably need to think about giving them new gimmicks if they are beginning to get stale. We then come back to a victory for Mickie James over Angelina Love in 7 minutes and 21 with a Mick kick. Velvet Sky was at ringside but couldn't do anything to stop Mickie James, who is focused and determined to get back on the path to the Knockouts Championship. Mickie James with a 78, Angelina Love with a 63. This was an eye candy rated match because it's going to get a 74, so that's why we do it. They have good chemistry also, which helps it, and of course it gains heat to the storyline which is named after the segment that follows more than the match itself. As Mickie James has her arm raised in the ring, a voice is heard looking to start a chant of Mickey, Mickey, Mickey. Eventually walking out from the back, Tara has a microphone and a huge smile on her face, looking to lead her chant for her former partner and more famously now a very, very bitter rival. Tara then begins to clap for Mickie, congratulating her on the victory in the match. Furious at what is now bordering on stalkerish behaviour from Tara, Mickie herself grabs a microphone from ringside. She tells Tara to stay out of my life, which causes Tara's previously beaming face to drop. Mickie then storms up the ramp, storming past Tara, and as they go face to face, she reminds her she wants nothing to do with her. A rehash of Mickie James and Tara, and I'm not sure, to give a bit of an insight into where I am with it, I am wondering whether we are retreading old ground too much. Plans have changed for where this was going to go, but I don't just want to drop it without a mention, so we are going to, again, transition this into something else, use what we've already got to hopefully help somebody else and to kickstart other storylines for these two women. Again, just me getting cold feet on some of the things that I've booked, mainly because I think that the Mickie James and Tara story has been told to death. It was going to be a different slant on it, but nonetheless, we've seen it. Let's not go over old ground too much. We've not got long left in the save, so there's still a few fresh things that we can do without having to resort to that. In the back, Chris Hero and Tyler Black are seen talking to Jimmy Jacobs. They've just returned to their locker room after saving AJ Styles in the ring. The two men ask him if he's seen Claudio Castagnoli, but Jimmy says the last he saw him, he was in this room prepping for the main event. Tyler Black suggests that they split up to go and look for Claudio, but Jimmy thinks that they may be better off sticking together. He's got a bit of a bad feeling about this. Chris Hero offers a compromise as he sets off looking for his tag team partner on his own, while Tyler Black and Jimmy Jacobs can search elsewhere together. We then return to the ring where Rosita has a microphone and says that she's here to speak about and then to Awesome Kong. She says that everybody saw what happened on Sunday. It was embarrassing for the Knockouts Tag Team Champions, and after what happened post-match with Kong knocking her down, she has just one thing to say to Awesome Kong. Thank you. She understands that both women were frustrated after their defeat at Lockdown, and she's not going to let one moment ruin what was an amazing run as Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Even if this is the end of their team, she wants to bring Kong out so that they can end things on good terms. Awesome Kong comes out, and Rosita thanks her for helping her achieve her dreams. Just being in the ring with her has taught her so much, and she steps towards the woman who threw her down at Lockdown, looking for a hug. Kong actually reciprocates the hug, which puts a huge smile on Rosita's face. This soon turns to concern, however, as Kong refuses to let go. She squeezes the life out of her former partner, former Knockouts Tag Team Champion, and quickly Rosita fades and passes out. Kong only lets go when there is zero resistance left from Rosita, and she drops her on the ground. Now this should have been the heel turn of Awesome Kong, but I just forget to put the turn note into these segments sometimes, so that's a little bit frustrating. I'll have to remember to do that next time she's on the screen, but quite clearly here there's no coming back from this. The push you could put down to a singular act of rage, the understandable frustration after being handcuffed to the cage, but what's happened tonight is clearly something that Kong premeditated, and there's no way to twist this other than an Awesome Kong heel turn, and it's actually the first time in this save that she's been a heel, so 2.5 years of babyface Awesome Kong, and I think it is time that we get back to that vicious, monstrous, killer heel that is Awesome Kong. It just gives so much potential in the division for the faces that we've built up to have that unstoppable monster to try and chop down. Making a late arrival to the building just before the main event, a car pulls up in the parking lot with Paul Heyman stepping out of it, grabbing the camera and pushing it down towards the ground. We see only the feet of what we presume is Brock Lesnar as he steps out. Returning to ringside, the commentators put over the after the main event, which is scheduled to be up next. Brock Lesnar will appear in the 6 sides to sign his Impact Wrestling contract. We then go into a segment just before the main event because Tyler Black and Jimmy Jacobs are seen outside of the medical room speaking on a phone. They tell Chris that they have found Claudio Castagnoli and he's in a pretty bad way. He says that he was jumped earlier in the locker room when they went out to the ring, and it seems like their issue with those guys are far from over. We thought this war was ending at Lethal Lockdown. From what we gather, Chris Hero on the other end of the line offers to replace Castagnoli against Samoa Joe in the main event. Black asks Hero if he's sure, especially considering his condition after Lethal Lockdown. He was in a Kimura from Davey Richards and then was thrown into the steel shoulder first by Brody Lee. But Chris Hero appears to insist, Tyler Black wishing him well, and we go into then the main event. Great wrestling and good heat. Samoa Joe does defeat Chris Hero in 14 minutes and 27, but there is quite a bit of distraction during the main event, stemming from Austin Aries' decision to come out towards the end of the match because he is sick of what he is hearing from the New Age Originals tonight. They're just calling themselves the New Age now, as if the New Age of Honor don't exist. He is furious that Impact Wrestling is allowing this to happen, and he's come on the headset so that he can put his narrative out there and spread the truth to everybody watching. He knows everybody's here to see Brock Lesnar, but they need to listen to what he and the New Age of Honor has to say. As Austin Aries continues to ramble his conspiracy nonsense on commentary, Tyler Black comes out with Jimmy Jacobs and they're arguing with him at the top of the ramp. Now, during this, we're still seeing the match going on and Chris Hero is trying to avoid everything that's going on, but when Brody Lee comes out, grabs Jimmy Jacobs and tosses him into the set at the top of the Impact Wrestling stage, he can't help but be distracted. After this happens, Tyler Black turns around to brawl with Brody Lee. They're going back and forth, trading punches when Aries low blows Tyler Black. Black is then hit with a double-handed choke bomb from Brody Lee off the stage. He's laid out completely, and at this point Chris Hero has to take his eye off the ball. Samoa Joe then locks in a modified version of the Kikina clutch, one where he's also wrenching on the arm, the injured arm of Chris Hero, and at some point Chris Hero passes out and the referee calls for the bell. So a much needed win for Samoa Joe here, and we are now going to complete the turn of Jimmy Jacobs. 14 segments of build, so it's about time that we pulled the trigger on that. Like I've said, Samoa Joe really needed a win here. It's not been a good year for him if you actually look at his record in 2012. I think he's had 3 matches or 4 matches and lost them all. Samoa Joe stands tall. After the match, we thought this war between the two sides of the New Age was over. We're wrong, and basically the commentators are suggesting, while these men are all in the company together, is it possible for there to be a scenario, a landscape where they aren't in some way fighting against each other one way or the other? We then go into the final break of the show and return to the segment that we've built up so very much. Dixie Carter is in the ring. She is joined by Paul Heyman, and we have the usual contract signing set up. Paul Heyman shakes hands with Dixie Carter, a huge smile on his face, a huge smile on Dixie Carter's face. It smiles all around when doing business that's going to be this good for your company. Paul Heyman in the ring welcomes Brock Lesnar to join him. Once in the ring, Paul Heyman puts over Lesnar as the single most dominant, the single most decorated, and the single most destructive athlete in the history of combat sports. The only man in history to hold the NCAA Division I Heavyweight Championship, the undisputed WWE Heavyweight Championship, and the undisputed UFC Heavyweight Championship. Can anyone guess what he has his sights set on now that he's in Impact Wrestling? He of course made that abundantly clear at Lockdown when he took out Jeff Hardy. Those accolades speak for themselves, so we know that Paul Heyman's going to do a great job of hyping him up. All that is left for Brock Lesnar to do is sign that contract, as Dixie Carter signs the contract herself and hands it to Brock Lesnar. She is stopped from speaking herself as Kurt Angle comes out. There's a brief face-to-face between Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle before Kurt places another document beside the contract that Brock is about to sign. He tells him that once he officially signs with this company, Angle wants him to sign the other contract, one to face him in his return match at the Sacrifice pay-per-view. So we're going straight into Brock Lesnar's first rivalry there. I did go a bit back and forth with this, whether it was enough just to build up to this segment and then say next week you're going to see Brock Lesnar interact with somebody, whether it's Jeff Hardy, whether it's Kurt Angle, whether it's someone else. But I actually thought that with the eyes on the product that we're hoping to bring, we wanted to go straight into something that was going to be big. Brock Lesnar signs his Impact Wrestling contract, officially becoming a member of our roster. But before he can sign the other contract, which he appears more than willing to do, Paul Heyman picks it up. He tells Brock he's just going to have a look through this, make sure everything's above board, and he leads Brock Lesnar away. Huge news to end the show. Brock Lesnar is officially a member of the Impact Wrestling roster. Perhaps not much of a surprise, but it appears, if him and Heyman agree, that Kurt Angle will be his first match in the company. And while it's only an 82 segment, a little bit disappointing. It was rated on Paul Heyman's entertainment, Kurt Angle's entertainment, and Brock Lesnar's overness. Now Lesnar isn't as over as you'd expect in this mod. I think it's to do with it degrading over time because he's not made any appearances in wrestling. So maybe it would have been good to have some narratives in there that kept his popularity up there, but that's all in retrospect. I'm not going to go and edit anything. I think he's like 78 popularity, which puts him below people like Chris Hero and quite a few people on our roster, but I'm just not going to worry about that basically. I think when it comes time for him to get in the ring, if it's with Kurt Angle, then we're going to have a great match. It's a decent episode rating, not fantastic, but actually when you look up and down the show, it was very consistent. We didn't hit the heights of a 90 rated segment at any point, but we also didn't have any super low points in there, so I'm happy with that, and I'm not going to complain because this is just one of the most important nights in the history of the company, and I think most things landed where we needed them to. We will now go into Evolve Wrestling for this week before following up at the end of the video with a little look back at what's happened and what is still to come. Evolve begins with Amazing Red picking up a victory over Kenny King in 10 minutes and 19 with a red eye. I don't know what that move is. He normally uses the code red, but obviously it's something different here. Straightforward victory, and we are going to give him his new gimmick, which is Gritty Underdog from Just Underdog. He's got a poor rating, so we thought we'd change it, and it's still a poor rating. So the two gimmick changes that we've done today not quite landing. The Charlie Haas one earlier and Amazing Red, it is two people who we are looking to push and feature, so a little bit disappointing. After the match, Homicide comes out as Kenny King rolls to the outside. He throws him into the ring post before confronting Amazing Red. They were supposed to be brothers. They were supposed to be LAX for life. But now he sees Amazing Red taking the side of D'Angelo De Niro, of Consequences Creed, of Sonjay Dutt. What the hell has happened? Amazing Red says that they may be brothers, they may have stood side by side, but he can't stand by and co-sign what Homicide has been doing recently. Homicide says that he's not surprised. Amazing Red has always and will always be a little bitch. Homicide then walks off. with Amazing Red making the challenge for Impact Wrestling. They are family, they are brothers, but sometimes you've got to fight your family, and that's going to go down next week on Impact Wrestling, and that's hopefully us further seeing that extra grit that we want to put into the character of Amazing Red. In the back, Team Canada then accused Kenny Omega of taking out Eric Young a couple of weeks ago. Kenny Omega suggests that Scott D'Amore looks a little bit closer to home when trying to find who it was who took Eric Young out. He's accusing Sean Spears of Tyson Dukes of being behind it, and he'll face Dukes later tonight in a one-on-one match. We then get a video package looking back at the rivalry of Daphne and Mischief. That comes to a head tonight in a no disqualifications match in our main event. I've only just realised when booking that previous show that I've double booked Mischief tonight, but hopefully she'll be alright. We might see in her main event performance that she's not, but fingers crossed that it doesn't have too much of a negative effect going into what has been sort of a undercurrent storyline. It's never sort of blown up and been a main focus, but it's been going on for a while now, so we should have enough footage to put together a little video package. Sarita then defeats Candice LeRae in 4 minutes and 42 with a double underhook powerbomb. A good performance from Sarita, not great from Candice LeRae, and it's not a good match overall, to be fair. Subpar wrestling, non-existent crowd heat, and a 37 rating, but Candice LeRae, who's on a one-night deal, just like Chuck Taylor, they both get very good ratings for the gimmicks, while the people who are actually trying to invest time and effort into pushing their gimmicks get negative ratings. So that's just the way things go. Sometimes it is what it is. I'm not going to worry too much. Sarita stands tall in the ring as we get a segment from Larry Sweeney, who promotes his appearance on Impact Wrestling this Thursday. He's received word from his contacts in Japan, and they have a message that they want him to relay to Hamada. Now, the last time we saw Larry Sweeney, he got kicked in the face by Hamada, so he's very much looking forward to delivering this message to Hamada, although he will be keeping a very safe distance to ensure that there isn't a repeat of what happened last time. Kenny Omega then defeats Tyson Dukes in 8 minutes and 41 with a cross-legged Fisherman's Buster. It's an okay match, average performances from the two guys, but it's just about putting over that Kenny Omega is on a decent run, and he celebrates after another victory. This is followed by a video package looking at Brock Lesnar's arrival in Impact Wrestling, just based on Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, so maybe it's some unseen backstage footage or something like that. Nothing too revelatory, but also just a little bit of an extra reminder to people who watch Evolve Wrestling. Brock Lesnar's in Impact Wrestling. We then get the main event, a no disqualifications wild brawl between Mischief and Daphne, and it is Mischief who gets the win in a match that's sort of filled with smoke and mirrors. It says it's poorly placed there, as we've seen throughout this show. The crowd reaction sort of gone off a cliff, and it makes sense after you've just watched Impact Wrestling. I don't imagine many people would be sticking around for what we're hyping as the show's main event, Daphne and Mischief. No disrespect to them, but they're not quite on the overness levels, and it shows in the performance. It's decent. Mischief doing well with a 55, justifying the victory over Daphne's 50, but we're essentially ending the storyline between these two with a wild brawl. Roxy getting involved, Daisy Hayes getting involved, but it is Mischief who picks up the win, and she stands tall after the match. A nice win for her, and it's an okay episode. Chuck Taylor and Candice LeRae both gone from Impact Wrestling. We're seeing there a month left on the contract of Mischief, so we'll have to get something done with that. No point in giving her a big win and then just letting her go. The TV ratings, that's again our best TV rating, and it does track, doesn't it? It makes sense. Brock Lesnar is in the company. People will have heard about that, and they will have wanted to tune in to see Impact Wrestling this week. I hope everybody who's watched this video has enjoyed it, and thank you for sticking with the series to this point. We're very, very close now to the end. The road to Slammiversary officially beginning on this show, and I don't think it could have began in a more impactful way. Hopefully you'll want to join me for the next one, and I'll see you hopefully very, very soon.